what's up guys, and welcome back to MOV Plus. I hope you've had an awesome day. Our workout today is going to have 3 pieces to it, so we're going to be starting off with the warm-up, getting the body ready for all the hard work. We're going to go into the build section, which is going to be mostly sort of upper body focused. We then got the move section, which is going to have 2 5-minute blocks of work. That'll be kind of a chipper style workout, where there'll be 4 movements. We're going to cycle through that. So looking at the warm-up, the first 2 minutes are going to be cardio of your choice, so you can pick what you want there. What we're going to do is cycle between 20 jumping jacks. That's going to look like this. And then we're going to go into 20 scissor jumps. And that'll just be on repeat for those 2 minutes. From there, the next 3 minutes, what we're going to do is each minute on the minute, you're going to start off with 10 up downs. So that is down to push-up position and back up again. And whatever time you have left out of that minute block, you're going to go into good mornings. So hands across the chest and just hinging over with a nice flat back. So you'll just fill up the remainder of the time with that. So we'll do that for the remaining 3 minutes. You good to go, Em?
Yep.
All right, so starting in 10, I'm going to go with that 2-minute cardio block to begin with, starting off nice and slow and allowing that body to ramp up into the intensity. And go for it. So you guys can pick what you want to do here. Feel free to be creative. If you've been doing kind of the same drills over and over, try to mix it up a little bit. If you've been doing a lot of jumping jacks, let's go for maybe running high knees or skipping, something like that, box jumps, burpees, anything like that's going to be good. We're going to go with these 20 jumping jacks into 20 scissor jumps. So working with a couple of different planes of movement as well, which is good. So a little bit sort of lateral and side on with that jumping jack, and then a little bit more in that sagittal plane with the scissor jumps. So that's kind of like a shallow jump lunge. So good one to kind of just warm the ankles and the knees and everything up. Both these movements you're going to find you're going to be fairly sort of light on the feet, especially this one's going to be more on the balls of the feet. The scissor jump, you'll find at least the front foot's probably going to be on the flat foot, though the back foot will be on the ball of the foot. So normally in a jump lunge, we would be going right down knee to ground. We're going to stay above, kind of hips above knee height with this one, so it's more of a shallow position, just rebounding to the next step. And as this 2-minute block goes on, guys, you can sort of feel free to accelerate if you want to. If you're feeling like the body's starting to kind of grease the groove a bit, you can start to accelerate and get that heart rate up. Okay, I've got about 30 more seconds. So remember from here, guys, what we're going to move into is each minute on the minute, we're going to go into 10 up downs and max good mornings in remaining time of each 60-second block. So there'll be 3 cycles of that. Okay, 10 seconds. All right, 3, 2, 1, and pushing on now. So we go to the 10 up downs. So each of these remaining 3 minutes is going to start with 10 up downs. We're going to come down to a push-up position and then stand up nice and tall. So you'll notice with Em's feet that she's going to go close at the back, so she hits that nice kind of tight gymnastics position. At the top, she's going to let those feet splay a little bit, just so she can get those hips nice and high. Once she hits 10, she's going to go into those good mornings. Okay, now the good morning, guys, is it's not uncommon for this to be done as a weighted movement, but we're going to just go body weight today. So this is more about just trying to stretch those hamstrings, get your body kind of talking to that spinal position, keeping that nice and fixed, getting that nice hinge pattern going on. So 15 more seconds. And we notice with this, you'll have a little bit of softness in the knees. We don't want to have a full lockout through the legs there. We just want to soften them. That way we can get that little bit more range of motion. All right, 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So another 10 on the up downs. As I said, if you're feeling good and you want to crank it up, go for it. If you feel like you're on a good pace though, stay with that. Real important in the bottom there, guys. We want to get that straightness. So try to check in that the hips are right in the middle. You should be able to draw a straight line from your head through your shoulders, through your hips, down to your feet. If you feel like your hips are kind of jackknifed up above that or they're sinking below, we're kind of switching off through that core, you want to try and fix that up. Now, if you happen to be particularly inflexible in your hamstrings, guys, that's okay. Maybe don't go quite as deep. Might go just kind of like a quarter rep. You can just sort of work with whatever flexibility you have. The main thing we're gonna watch out for is that if I lean over and then my spine starts to round off, I've kind of crossed the point that I don't want to go to. 10 more seconds. So it should feel like you're moving at the hips, not at the spine. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So final round on this one. Moving through these 10 up downs again. All right, so back on to the good morning for the last 30 seconds. So the point that Emily's getting down to there, she's pretty much at like a full 90-degree bend at the hip. Like that's the ultimate goal of where we want to work to in the long run. As I mentioned earlier, you might just work with sort of a 2/3 or a half rep. Just go to where your flexibility allows, but make sure you're paying attention to how that backbone feels. You don't want to feel like you're getting rounded and pointing the chest down. You can see Em's head and chest are kind of targeted ahead. So that way she's keeping that nice elongated position. All right, that is our 5 minutes, guys. So that's the warm-up done. Have a bit of a chill, and then we're gonna check out the build section next. Alrighty, guys, so now that we're warmed up, we're gonna check out the build section. So how this one's gonna run is we have a 9-minute time frame, and we're gonna be working through 3 sets of the following. So what we're gonna start off with is 12 dumbbell pullovers. Now, depending on what you have access to at home, guys, you can do this with 1 or 2 dumbbells, 1 kettlebell, whatever you've got. Em's got 2 there. She's gonna hold them tight together, tiny little bend in the elbows, and she's gonna drift that back slowly to the ground, light touch, and then pull it back up over the top of the chest. Okay, and it's just back and forth on that one. The second movement we're gonna do is 12 reps of a close grip or a hammer grip floor press. So this one will look very similar to our normal floor press, and the difference is we're gonna have those elbows as snug as you can possibly get them to the rib. So it's a very close grip, sort of tricep dominant kind of a press. So we'll do 12 and 12, 3 sets in 9 minutes. Obviously, we're gonna try and run on about a 3-minute rotation. So if you can get the work done in, say, 2 minutes, you've got a minute to rest there. We're good to go for that next round. Good to go, Em? Yeah. All right, starting in 10. So we're going with the 12 pullovers first. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So with this particular movement, guys, you want to go really, really slow, okay? You want to make sure we're controlling, especially if we've got that straight arm position. It's going to feel like the dumbbells are a long ways out from the body. So make sure you can control it to the point where you don't feel like your body's getting dragged with it and getting arched up in that low back. Em's keeping her body in a nice kind of neutral position. So it's not exactly flat to the ground. We don't need that. But that natural arch in the low back is just maintaining and staying where it is versus getting kind of excessively arched and pulled back. So her rib cage is kind of staying where it is. And we're thinking about really stretching on those lats, so the muscles that do all of our rows and deadlifts and pull-ups and things like that. Just getting a nice big stretch through there. Don't be surprised as well if the pecs get a little bit involved too. So I mentioned she's got that little bit of bend in the elbows, guys. That is just to take the stress off the joint. It's more on the musculature to kind of hold that position. It's just that light touch on the ground. So if you find yourself kind of clunking into the floor, guys, make sure you slow that down, control it really nicely. Once we hit 12, we're gonna move to the floor press. Okay, so we're about halfway through our 3-minute time frame, so we're looking good. Okay, remembering with this close grip or hammer grip press, we're gonna try and wind it in as narrow as possible. Typically, we would be kind of out on a 45-degree angle with the arms. Just for the sake of variance and hitting the muscles a little bit differently, we're gonna rein them in nice and tight. Dumbbells are gonna be in a nice neutral position, so they'll run along the same line as your body. Nice, all right, so resting now. We've got just over a minute to have a bit of a breather before we hit the next one. Okay, 30 seconds till we hit that next one. All right, 5 seconds. Going in 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So you'll notice that when Em is bringing the dumbbells up over the chest, she stops there. She's not allowing it to kind of go down towards her hips or towards her stomach. What we want to do is kind of keep tension on. So there's always this feeling of like if I was to let go, they would fall back. If I'm in a position where I was to let go and they would fall forwards, that means I've gone too far. So think basically once they cross the view of your line of sight at the roof, that's about far enough so it sends up over the chest. Good, and just nice and slow. So we're thinking about probably like 3 seconds down, 2 seconds back up again, and just constantly keeping in check, is my rib cage starting to roll and move with the dumbbells, or am I keeping it locked in place? As this can feel like as much an ab exercise as it is a lat and shoulder exercise. All right, so moving to the presses. I'm gonna go nice and slow on these ones as well, keeping tucked in. Very important when we're doing any kind of press on the ground, whether it's this close grip or a normal grip, we wanna think about driving the shoulder blades back together as much as possible. So right now as Em's doing this, she'll be able to see in her peripheral vision that her chest is kind of sticking out, and that's those shoulders wedging back together. What we don't wanna have happen is the press to protract at the shoulder and roll the shoulders away from the ground and overreach into that. It's about locking the elbow out and pushing that shoulder back, and that way it stays in a really nice safe position. So one more cycle is to go through. Just over a minute to rest. Okay, 30 seconds till we hit that last one. Okay, 10 seconds, so we'll start to get ourselves ready to go for this third and final round. Going in 3, 2, 1, and go for it. Now, a good idea, guys, if you're doing this one with a single kettlebell, if that happens to be the weighted object you have at home, obviously that rounded side can be a little hard to work with if the hands get sweaty, so good idea on those breaks or even mid-set if you need to. Dry the hands off. If you happen to have chalk, that's a good idea. You just don't want that thing slipping out of your hand when it's hovering over your head and chest. So just make sure we're keeping safety first there. Remember to check in that nice little bend in the elbows. Sometimes it's easy just to hit a lockout and go from there, but we want to make sure we're not stressing out that elbow joint. So it is kind of as long as you can make your arm without having it fully locked. And really think about sort of reaching up into it. So get that really nice stretch and then actively trying to contract those lats. You think about pulling over and lifting your chest as you do that. That'll get those pecs involved too. Doing good, Em. All right, so moving to the press. Take these ones nice and slow for the last round. This is always a good trick to use, guys. If you only have one pair of dumbbells at home and it happens to feel quite light for what we're doing, bring that tempo in, okay? We can spend a lot more time under tension, stress those muscles with lesser weight. You can see the rest of the body's position is exactly the same from the pullover to the press, and that's just a bent leg, feet planted, hips planted. That's just to get that spine in a nice comfortable position. Sometimes if you have the legs just flat out, you'll feel like that low back is kind of a little bit stressed out and uncomfortable. Nice. All right, so we've got just about 1 more minute on the clock, guys. So if you are still going, keep working away on it. Keep working that nice slow tempo, and then we'll push on once the last minute has run out. Thirty seconds left. Okay, final 10 seconds, so hopefully you're finishing off those last presses. 3, 2, 1, and done. All right, guys, so that is the build section. Have a little bit of recovery time, grab a drink, and then we'll check out the move section next. All right, so guys, now we're gonna go through the move section. So how this one is gonna run is we have 2 5-minute blocks. There will be a 2-minute break in between those. And what you're gonna do in each of those 5-minute blocks is start off with 20 dumbbell suitcase lunges. So that's gonna look like this. So dumbbells by your side, either stepping forwards or backwards. You can even do them walking if you want to, as long as that knee touches the ground. That is then gonna roll into 15 reps of a renegade row. So with this one, we've got kind of 3 parts. So we're gonna push up, row, and row. So each rep is push up, row, row. So that would be 1 repetition. We're gonna do 15 cycles of that. So that is gonna be a big one. Feel free to break that up. The next movement is 20 push presses. So it's a dip drive to lockout. And then from there, if you have time left over, or how much time you have left over in that 5 minutes, you're gonna go into as many burpees as you can. So chest to ground, up to a jump. So you get as far through it as you can in 5 minutes. We take a 2-minute break, then we start it all over again and do it 1 more time. Good to go?
Yep.
Starting in 10. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So with the lunges, guys, the most important part is the posture and the knee touching the ground. If you've got those 2 boxes ticked, you're good. If you're stepping forward, stepping backwards, walking, that's kind of up to you. I'm not too stressed which way you go with that. But we're looking at just getting good body positioning. So nice vertical shin on that lead leg. Making sure that that heel is going to be glued down to the ground. We don't want to be pitching up on the toes. And Em's going to work real hard to keep those dumbbells stuck by her hips. So if she's getting tired, she's not going to let them kind of sway forward. She's going to keep them stuck with the line of her body. So 20 reps on this, then we're gonna move into that chunky midsection, which is the renegade rows for 15 reps. This will get pretty spicy on the shoulders, so feel free to break it into smaller groups. And with this one, we wanna really pay attention to good stability. So you can see Em's gone for that nice open stance with the feet. The hands are relatively close, so it kind of creates this tripod effect, and that gives her stability even when she takes one hand off the ground. So looking for chest to floor. And then as we do that row, you want to think about trying to get your elbow behind the line of your body. So I like to imagine like pulling a bow and arrow. We're trying to get that right back behind us. And all the while, we're going to try and keep the hips level with the shoulders and the feet. Everything's in one straight line. So a little strategic break here. Got plenty more pressing movements after this with the push press and the burpees. So good idea just to kind of keep a little bit of life in those shoulders. And one of the common mistakes that will happen with this when people get fatigued is they will start to push their body back away from the dumbbell, so almost go into like a pike shoulder press sort of thing, and the bum's gonna push up to the roof. We wanna make sure the hips stay low and chest stays over the dumbbells. So if you find yourself looking at the dumbbells or just in front of them, you're in a good spot. If you find yourself kind of looking up at the dumbbells like they're out in front of you, then chances are we've drifted back into that bad position. Nice work, Em. All right, so that's the 20 down. I'm gonna go to the push presses now. So pulling up into that front rack position, nice close stance. You'll notice with this that although the hips are gonna break, it's mostly actually the knees kind of going forwards and outwards that's creating that leg spring. Just gonna bring that head through so you get a nice stacked shoulder position at the top. And again, a little strategic break. Just crossed over halfway in that 5-minute block. When we go into the bottom of the dip with this, guys, you want to make sure that you're staying on those heels. That's where we're going to create a lot of drive from. You'll notice at the top of the movement, she's going to peak up off the heels. That's okay. That's part of what we're doing. But at the bottom, you've got to keep heels down. All right, so the last 2 or so minutes, we're going to go through burpees and accumulate as many as we can. Now, depending on your fitness level, guys, you might just get to this part and get 1 or 2 in. Maybe you don't get to it all. Doesn't matter. You just do you, work through it with good form. This is always one you can do later down the track when you're fitter and see if you can beat your own score. So remembering at the end of this 5-minute block, guys, we get a 2-minute rest, and then we're gonna go through this whole thing one more time. Okay, about to roll on the last minute before we hit that break. Doing good, and we've got 45 seconds to go. So notice how that even though she's getting to that fatigue point now, she's still propping those hips up nice and high. She's not going for that sort of slouchy tuck position, kind of tucking those knees through. She's going to drive those hips up, use her abs, use her hip flexors, use the shoulders to push the ground away. And that way she gets a nice clean stand up. Last 15 seconds. One more rep. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and resting. All right, so 2-minute break. This is a good opportunity to go for a little bit of a walk around, maybe pop outside for a moment, get some fresh air, get some water in, and then we're gonna go through that one more time. Okay, so 1 more minute on the break, then we're gonna hit this second round. Okay, 30 seconds, so just a reminder, we start off with the 20 suitcase lunges, into the 15 renegade rows. Remember, it's a push-up, row per rep, then into the 20 push presses, and then maxing out on the burpees. Okay, 15 seconds in. All right, going in 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So now that we're in this second time around, guys, you should be sort of familiar with the movements, but we're also dealing with that fatigue now. Hopefully you've regained some composure with that 2-minute rest, but just take this initial time to check in that form is still looking good. So heels planted, shins vertical. So we don't want to see that knee diving over the toe, okay? Should feel like your head, shoulders, hips, and knee, and that's the knee that's touching the ground, are stacked in one straight line as we hit the bottom there. All right, so moving to the renegade rows now. So you want to set up reasonably narrow at the top end, okay, and then reasonably wide at the bottom end. You'll find that will just give you a little bit more stability as you move through it. So you can see that Em's going sort of as narrow as she can without blocking her path to getting her chest to the ground. So we don't want to go so narrow that you end up on top of the dumbbells, because that's going to kind of cut that range of motion. So make sure it is wide enough that you can squeeze through the middle there and then drive back up. If you find yourself starting to kind of reef the dumbbells up and twist the body a little bit too much and the hips are starting to roll across, and you can feel your feet kind of rolling across the toes, just slow things down, break it up a little bit more, but just make sure you've got this nice feeling of like a flat setup where nothing moves except the arm doing the row. We don't want the whole body going with it. Doing a good job, Em. Now, if you're someone who doesn't have push-ups on the toes, guys, you can do them from the knees if you need to. So you would obviously do the row part on the toes. As we move through the push-up part, you can actually just drop those knees down a little bit and do a knee push-up for that part. Or if you have an elevated surface like some stairs or something like that, so that's the knee version, can also go for an elevated renegade row as well. All right, so moving to the push press at 20 reps. You want to feel like your posture through your torso is just straight up and down. So imagining we've got our back running up and down a wall. There's no tilt forward, no tilt back. We're just basically pushing the hips straight towards the heels, and it's the knees that are going to do the driving forwards and outwards. Now the lower body should do the majority of the work here, even though this is a shoulder movement. We want to get as much momentum out of the lower body as we can, and then the arms are just going to kind of chase those dumbbells up. So we're really trying to heave it through the lower body and the shrug, and then those arms will just finish that movement. All right, so last little bit, we're going to go through those burpees. So this is the end of the workout, guys. So this is where you want to really empty the tanks and push it as hard as you can. Em's paced it really nicely because she's ended up in the same spot pretty much at the exact same time as the previous round. Going with that nice kind of roll down technique at the bottom there, so she's not over-exhausting those shoulders by taking a strict push-up. She's just allowing herself to kind of go knees first, then thighs, then hips, then body. If you're someone that when you do burpees, you have the tendency to kind of crowd the hips and not fully stand up, do this with a touch marker. So if you want to stand in like a doorway or something like that, or if you've got some sort of beam overhead that's going to be just outside of your reach, that can be good to keep you honest and keep that nice high touch. Em's obviously hit in a really nice upright position here, so she's good with that. She doesn't need that touch marker. She's going those open hips and getting that hand contact overhead. So either behind head or above head is good. And that touch marker, that just adds an extra element to it. Okay, we've got about 30 seconds left, Em. Three, two, 1, and done. All right, that is the move section done. Have a little bit of recovery time. We're gonna check out some stretches to finish off next. Alrighty guys, we're gonna get into a little bit of cool down work now. So going through a couple of stretches. The first one we're gonna do is looking at your hip and glute. So we're gonna go through a pigeon stretch. So with this one, gonna go into a nice long split stance, fold that leading leg shin across the line of your body. So we're gonna jump on this for 45 seconds on each side. Now you notice Em's got some pads underneath the knee there. That's just to give her a little bit of support. So that versus her having to get into a really tucked in position. You can see my legs kind of back at my hip. This just allows her to bring that shin up to a more square position, which is going to ramp up that stretch, which we really want. So try to posture up with this one. Sometimes the tendency, especially after a long hard workout, is to sort of drop forward and round off. If we can get that spine elongated and tall, that's going to kind of crank the hips into a better position for creating that nice glute stretch. So we'll go about 5 more seconds, then we're going to switch sides. And go for it. So we're going to bring those pads across. Get that shin squared up so it's perpendicular with the line of your body. And then the rear leg is going to reach out as far as it can. You can kind of even use that as a little bit of a tool to like wiggle yourself back deeper into that stretch. You'll find that her left hip's going to be getting really wound up now. So this is going to be really good for like loosening up tight glute muscles after all the squatting, pulling, running, all that sort of stuff. It's also going to help with like squat mobility to be able to get those knees out nice and wide. Three, 2, 1, and we'll pop out of that one. The next one we're going to go into is a standing side bend. So what Em's going to do is put one foot behind the other, and then she's going to take that side over the top. So again, we'll go for 45 seconds on each side. Now with this one, you don't have to stay in the hold the entire time. What you might do is tension on for a little bit and then relax it off for a moment, take a nice big breath in, exhale and push into it a little bit deeper. So the reason for the leg crossover is just to wind up that muscle line right up the side of the body there, all the way down into the hip. Get that to open up nicely. So you're going to get a few different places of this. You're going to get your lats down the side, down to the obliques. You might even get it down to a little bit of sort of ITB, that sort of stuff. So just hanging out there. So her right leg now is the one that's kind of the weight bearing one. She's kind of standing on that one. The other one is just kind of locked out behind, and then we're pushing that hip out to the side. All right, switching sides. Okay, now notice if you look at her hands, her left hand, which is the non-stretching side, is going to grab onto the right side, which is the stretching side, and it's actually going to kind of pull that over the top. So she's winding up even more tension and creating a little bit more range with that extra bit of pull. So she's kind of dragging that arm over whilst the hips are kind of pushing in the opposite direction. Three, 2, 1, and done. Alrighty guys, if you have more time, go through this a couple of times, 3, 4 times if you can. Really take that time to mobilize and loosen up that body. Otherwise, we will catch you next time. That has been your Move Plus workout.